Hello, and welcome to Lopes on Movies. My name is Joey Lopes, and today we are joined by Connor.
Hi.
And Kyle.
Hello.
Trying something different in the intro this week.
I like it.
What'd you guys think?
It's really intense.
Yeah, I like the intense hello. I'm kind
Yeah.
of gravitating towards the intense hello these days. It's kind of fun for me. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I was taken aback a bit and wasn't ready for that. So
Yeah, that's kind of
That's
the
what I
impression I got. You seemed a little bit unsettled by
I
the
didn't know
whole
I
thing.
didn't know who I was talking to. Jeez.
Yeah, well,
Weird.
do not worry. We are doing the same thing we've always done, which is talk about movies. Nothing has changed, but this week is kind of a weird week.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, let's try to paint a picture here. The other day, we were trying to figure out what to talk about on the show this week, and we kind of just decided, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. We're going to browse the HBO Max, which is of course the new HBO streaming service. We're gonna browse
HBO's third streaming service.
It's HBO's
It's not-
third streaming service. Yes, not HBO Now and not HBO
Yeah.
Go. It's HBO Max.
Something completely different.
Completely different. And we're just gonna see what's on there, and then make a list of movies that we could watch, and then select one and just watch it, and then that's what we're gonna do, right? So me and Kyle, for a long time, we're sitting there browsing through
A long time.
and making jokes about all the movies that we saw. It was a great time, a great bit. And at the end of the whole thing, we came up with a list of like 5 movies or something like that, and then we pared that down to 3, right? And on that list were Robert Altman's The Player, which is a great movie that I saw actually in college, a long time ago at this point, but just a really a classic and something that I really wanted to watch again at some point. We put in Police Story, which is one of the first big Jackie Chan action movie extravaganzas. He directed it. It's a Hong Kong movie, and is legendary for its action scenes. I've never seen it. I've been wanting to see it for a long time. Just an absolute classic of action filmmaking. And the third movie on there was a movie called Cellular.
Guess which one we picked?
So I want to ask everybody listening to this, if you were alive in 2004, which I assume you were, do you remember seeing trailers for a movie about a guy who gets a call from a kidnapped woman on a cell phone, and then he has to figure out what's going on and become like an action hero trying to save her? Because I remembered those trailers vividly, but I completely forgot about the movie. And then just randomly while browsing through HBO Max, we happened to see Cellular, which is that movie, is available. But only for a couple of days. It actually is leaving the HBO Max catalog at
July
the end of this
1st.
month.
Which I thought was hilarious. HBO Max just launches immediately. That movie is going to be off HBO Max.
Yeah, but the thing is, I remember the trailers for that movie, and even at the time, I feel like, even though I was in 4th grade, I feel like I thought, man, that looks stupid.
No, you didn't. You said, "Whoa, a movie based around cell phones? That's rad."
I'm not even sure I knew what a cell phone was in 4th grade.
Yeah.
I didn't have a cell phone until I was in 8th grade, so I have no idea. But the point is, we had the option to watch 2 absolute classics of cinema, and instead we decided to watch this trash movie from 2004 called Cellular.
Well,
So-
we don't know if it's trash yet.
Well, let's say, I guess we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. Oh man. All right, Kyle, how about we get into this?
Okay.
Give us the synopsis of Cellular.
Okay, Cellular. A young man receives an emergency phone call on his cell phone from an older woman. The catch? The woman claims to have been kidnapped, and the kidnappers have targeted her husband and child next. It was directed by David R. Ellis and stars Captain America's sweetheart Chris Evans, Kim Basinger, and Jason Statham, long before he was either Hobbs or Shaw, because, I don't remember that stupid movie. Connor, what'd you think about Cellular?
Oh boy, Cellular. So I did not pick Cellular. I definitely picked one of the other movies, and then Joey was like, "All right, let's watch Cellular." So that's how that went. So
look, sometimes you're in the mood for something good, and sometimes you're in the mood for garbage.
Cellular.
I just think it's really great that you wanted to watch Cellular, but you wanted us to be the ones to say, "Let's watch Cellular," and
I didn't want to admit it.
Yeah. So it's fine because a part of me wanted to watch Cellular too, but I needed to make sure I had enough beer to to get through it. Cellular it's a star-studded cast of like all these actors like who like were huge. I guess the biggest star was probably Kim Basinger at the time, right? And then Chris Evans, who's now huge. Jason Statham is huge. William H. Macy is also in this, who's like now a huge TV star too. It's and he did a classic role. This is the ultimate cliche movie ever. It is exactly what you think a movie called Cellular would be. Everything about it. This to me, it feels dated for 2004. Like it's just like scenes. Oh, here's something like because. It's so Jason Statham's like the heavy, and he kidnaps Kim Basinger at the beginning of the film, and you're just wondering, all right, so how are we going to get introduced to Chris Evans? And what do you think immediately? Oh, it's going to be some, I think I even said this is going to be some like over the top pop song, and it's going to be him at a beach, and then like 2 seconds later, goes from a extremely dramatic kidnapping scene to exactly that. This is, and the entire movie is that. And I can't say I didn't have a good time because I actually did. And it's Cellular. There's a lot to say about it.
I had a great time with Cellular. I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah,
and not even in like a so bad it's good way, but more in just like a, it reminded me of my youth. Not because like I was 20 years old in 2004 because I wasn't, but because seeing movies like this existing was something that only happened in the past. Like movies like this don't exist anymore. These kinds of like surprisingly high budget, trashy action movies that are entirely based on some really gimmicky, dumb concept. Like this movie is dated, as Connor said, but in a way that makes it more interesting to watch because it's like a little time capsule of the early 2000s. And that's really why I wanted to watch it, because I wanted to see something that's, that would remind me of that time. And oh man, it is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I got to be honest with you, I think even though it's like a very trashy movie, it actually was not all that poorly received when it first came out. Our boy Roger Ebert actually gave it 3.5 stars. Like, think about that.
That's great.
So like people generally responded nicely to this movie, and I think the thing that's kind of changed over the past decade and a half or whatever is that these kinds of action movies they all used to be like this. They all used to be really, really like goofy, obviously like tongue-in-cheek, dumb, silly stuff with very, very like obvious scripts that are perfectly constructed to tell this just like one dumb action movie premise. But nowadays I feel like most movies are kind of self-serious in a way, or aren't as like deliberately goofy. I think the only like counterpoint to that would maybe like the Fast and Furious movies, which definitely are kind of deliberately goofy, but I don't even know if they are in the same way.
And there is a connection here.
Well, yeah, because Hobbs or Shaw, whichever one.
No, even more so when we get to talking about the writer.
Oh, is that right? I had no idea.
This movie is exactly, this set the stage for those.
It did.
Let's put it that way. But yeah, like everything about this is like, Joey, you brought up the music too. How even movies like this, like just trash action movies, had like a full score. Had a composer. Like they did that back then, and now
it's had like a full orchestral score for its ridiculous ridiculous nonsense movie. Like nowadays, they would just like throw in a couple of like temp tracks, and have a guy maybe like slightly alter them, and then call it a day. They wouldn't actually. They definitely wouldn't hire an orchestra. They would just use digital instruments because it's so much cheaper. So it really is kind of a quaint, unique thing in a way. It reminds me of the old days, and it is garbage. Like you're watching garbage for sure, but it's comforting garbage. It's the kind of garbage that you can get really hyped about. There are parts of this movie that I was getting hype. Let's be honest. William H. Macy going ham as like, come on.
William H. Macy is a guy who maybe 3 or 4 times in the film talks about how he's been on the job for 25 years and he's about to be done.
It was 27 years.
Yeah, come on, Kyle.
27. Oh, sorry. But like, oh man.
Yeah, it even has the cop about to retire before getting roped into last case.
That's like the second line with the cop.
He's like talking on the phone to like something he's trying to return because he's also like the cop who's getting like kind of kicked around by the other guys at the station.
Yeah.
Hey, the chief said you shouldn't be getting packages delivered. And he's opening a day spa, and they're making jokes about him and his wife opening a day spa. Oh my God, this is it's fantastic.
Oh man, it's while we're talking about just like great moments, can we talk about when our title character with the cellular phone gets the phone call, and it's like this woman is like, I've been kidnapped, I need your help, and he's like, is this Chloe?
Yeah, and that's another thing. Another star in this totally thankless role who played Chloe was Jessica Biel.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that actually.
This movie had a lot of stars. You'll know everybody who's in it, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, again, like these trashy movies, these trashy action movies were not just some like random thing that existed, and didn't get that much money and just had random people in it. They were like these were the big movies of the time. These were like the blockbuster movies. They got actors in these, and they had budgets. Like this movie is not just like, it's a dumb premise, but they threw money at the screen. You can see it in some of the scenes where there's like huge like million car pileups, chase scenes. There's explosions. Like there's actual like practical stuff going on here.
Yeah.
Like this movie was not made for $2.
There's a lot of explosions.
There were, yeah.
And a lot of car. You're right. There was just like a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like way more than I thought from a movie called Cellular.
Yeah, I mean, like I think nowadays we're trained to expect like dumb movies to look like garbage. Like if this movie were made today, it would have like a $5 million budget, and half the special effects would be like really bad CG. But everything in this is practical. Like they do actual car wrecks, they do actual like chase scenes with all this stuff. I mean, it's a wonderful thing to see. And maybe we're just so desensitized to movies not really having that kind of like grounded sense of like action going on, that even something like this, even Cellular, it impresses us. But I honestly, like as much as I want to joke about this movie being dumb, I had a great time. And I think there's something to be said for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the main thing, it's just, the script is so just like perfect for this.
Oh god, yeah.
It's like
the setups and the payoffs are like so on the nose, so dumb. Like
so like in the first 2 minutes of the movie, Kim Basinger is like walking her son to like the bus stop, and like you immediately get a question from the kid going, "Hey mom, are you still going to be the science teacher when I move up to the next grade?" Like just to establish she's a science teacher, she's going to like, that's going to come into play like right in your face in the first 2 minutes. Like it just stuff like that. It's just it's perfect. Every single, and there's so many scenes like that throughout the entire thing.
Oh, big disappointment with this movie. Big major one. They only use slow motion like twice.
Oh, that's
in
true.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like this an early 2000s movie. You got to be doing that like, there's got to be like 50 plus scenes with slow motion.
Oh, it's
they
like
really
the classic, like it's the great kind of slow motion too, where they didn't even film it in a higher frame rate and then like play it back at 24 frames a second. They actually just like slowed down the 24 frames a second footage so it looks really choppy and like dumb.
Yeah,
that's like that's one of the dumbest effects that you can do. Everybody always laughs at that, but there's some other things in this that I thought were really like enjoyably stupid. Like one of the first shots in the movie is this really long like tracking shot that follows
right to the door.
Follows Kim Basinger into her house through the peephole of her front door.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I gotta tell you, the first 10 minutes of this film are fire.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it is amazing. From like the first 2 minutes where you're told that she's a science teacher and you know that something's gonna happen, to that tracking shot to the door, to like every single bit that happens until you get to the extremely dramatic scene, to cut to stupid pop song and Chris Evans and his stupid buddy talking about like chicks and
it's the kind of stuff that you have to see it to believe it. There's something about just like dumb bros that's really entertaining to me.
Oh, it's just the best.
It's just great stuff. You don't.
Yeah, and then right in that first 10 minutes, they establish, Chris Evans, because whatever his name is, you're not.
His name was Ryan. Ryan is
Ryan. Yes, it was Ryan. You're not responsible enough. And he's like, what do you mean I'm not responsible enough? And like, oh man, like it's just so great.
All right, I guess there's a few more specific things we could go into about Cellular. So one of the funny things, we looked up the brief history of this movie and where this came from and why it exists. So the original, the script was written by, what was his name? The script was written by a guy named Chris Morgan. He's credited as a screenwriter, but it's a story by credit for a guy named Larry Cohen. Now, Connor, I know that you looked into Larry Cohen a little bit and have kind of an idea of some of the stuff he's done in the past.
Yeah. So I've looked up Larry Cohen because I was fascinated by this. R.I.P. Larry Cohen, by the way. He died just last year. He's been working in the business forever, since like the 60s, I think he went as far back, and he's been writing for TV and writing for the silver screen his whole life. And it looked like by the end of his run in writing movies, he was fascinated by cell phones and phones in general. So in 2002, the movie Phone Book, he wrote. Then this one, of course, Cellular. And then the last thing he made was Messages Deleted in 2010, which was actually a movie with Matthew Lillard that was people calling him and asking for help, which is what happens in Cellular, which is so. He was just fascinated by cell phones. They were just this mystical thing to him. But he had an idea going on, right, Joe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the originally this script, I think he either wrote a treatment or a script. I don't remember, but he he was trying to write a movie that was basically like using cell phones as a symbol for like isolation, like social isolation, like egotism, like people getting like so wrapped up in their own worlds, just on their cell phones or whatever, which is kind of actually a very forward-thinking concept for 2004. So I feel like people weren't really talking about that to any significant degree until like smartphones.
Oh yeah, Larry Cohen was way ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time for sure.
That was before texting, really, and all this. Like, it was just people who were calling on the phones.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So he brought the idea, I think, to Sony and pitched it to somebody there. And then the executive he pitched it to ended up leaving Sony and was going to try to shop the project around somewhere else. And she brought that project to everybody's favorite producer and director of films such as Geostorm, Dean Devlin.
Friend of the show, Dean Devlin, actually.
Yeah, it's actually true. Dean Devlin's Electric Entertainment was the production company that distributed the independent film Say My Name that me and Connor talked about quite a while ago, which is a very good movie, and I think people should check that out, by the way. But Dean Devlin has also listened to this show before, which was kind of exciting when we did that episode on Say My Name. Dean Devlin had a very different take on the idea that Larry Cohen had. Like, Larry Cohen's script was more high concept. It was about themes, social isolation, egotism. Whereas Dean Devlin saw it and was like, this sounds like an action movie. This doesn't sound like that. This sounds like an action movie. Let's get rid of any cynicism and just make it about a guy who gets a phone call and has to save the day. And you know what? I think he might have been right. Because
I'll tell you, Dean Devlin knows what audiences want. In
a sense. Hey, back in 2004, it was definitely true because he was working with Roland Emmerich on like things like Independence Day and like around that time, like a little earlier, like those movies were huge, absolutely huge. So he had his finger on the pulse. I feel like nowadays people don't really like this kind of trashy stuff anymore. But back in the day, people were all about it. But it is funny to see how a movie can so drastically change from its initial like concept into something completely different. But sometimes still valuable. And I do think that Cellular is valuable.
It went to that guy who wrote the screenplay. I think you said Chris Morgan, right?
Yes, Chris Morgan ended up changing the script, yeah.
Right, so then I wanted to tie it back to what I said earlier. So Chris Morgan would then go on to write most of the Fast and Furious films.
Oh.
So there is a connection to all this.
Well,
and then, he goes on and he casts Jason Statham as either Hobbs or Shaw. We don't know which one.
Wait, did he do Hobbs and Shaw?
Yeah, he did Hobbs and Shaw. He wrote Hobbs and Shaw.
Wow,
yeah.
that explains so much.
Kyle, do you see a lot of similarities between Hobbs and Shaw from what you remember of Hobbs and Shaw and Cellular?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it like you can feel it now.
I mean, they're almost identical movies. Just Hobbs and Shaw. It has two characters instead of one. Big difference.
Okay, one more thing that we want to talk about. So you guys remember the show Suits, right?
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Everybody listening to this, remember the show Suits? Oh man. Listen, guys. USA Network put out some pretty solid shows for a while. That you had.
You couldn't even say it with a straight face.
Hey, shut up. You had your Burn Notices, which was good for 3 seasons. You had your Psych, which I think was good for like 3 seasons.
Maybe 4.
If you're being generous. And you had White Collar, which I never watched. You had Royal Pains, which I never watched.
I watched one season of that. Or Monk.
Well, Monk was the original one, yeah. So I guess that's
Monk was good. What was one with like the woman that was like a sports like psychiatrist or something?
Oh my god, yeah, you're right.
Do you remember that?
I think that was the one that didn't work.
Yeah, that lasted like 1 season, but you're right, I do remember that, but I do not remember the name.
What was that called?
Oh man, we're gonna have to look that up later. But I digress. Towards the end of like the I guess the USA Network like summer show phenomenon, because after a while they just like they moved on to things like Mr. Robot and kind of away from the more like procedural, Monster of the Week type like fun in the sun type shows. Like towards the end of that era was when they came up with this show Suits, right, about lawyers in New York. And there's this one character on that show named Louis Litt, played by Rick Hoffman, who's just this like very, very particular man. He's got a very unique screen presence that I don't think I've ever seen quite replicated. But would you believe that he plays the exact same character that he plays in Suits in Cellular?
Yes.
I guess it's like a
Lawyer,
conspiracy
everything.
theory. Yeah, I mean, so there's this ongoing bit about Chris Evans in this movie because like he gets the call to save this woman, and then he just kind of decides, I have to do whatever it takes. So he holds up a store to get a phone charger. He like fires a gun in the store to get the phone charger. And the other thing he's doing is stealing cars left and right. First he steals a car from a school security guard, and then he steals. What's that?
No, there's actually a great line in that scene.
Oh, you're right. Oh, yeah.
He's just outside the school. The kid gets kidnapped. He's like, hey, that kid's getting kidnapped. It's just like so stupid.
Oh, God, I forgot about that. That was amazing. Where were we? Right, okay. So he...
I'm sorry.
He's stealing cars left and right. And one car that he steals is this like really, really nice car from this lawyer played by Rick Hoffman, who is like literally the exact same character as his character in Suits. And he's that guy, man, he deserves to be a bigger star because his performance in this is just wonderful.
And just when you think he's not going to be, that's the last scene with him, he comes back, and then he comes back again just to like, it's the perfect right amount of usage of Rick Hoffman. And I'm glad he got the chance to keep working on his character from Cellular in Suits.
Yeah, for sure.
For what was probably like 8 years too long. But
I mean, I really do hope that the reason why that character is in Suits is because, the writer of the show, watched Cellular and was like, I want this guy in my show.
yeah, we did a lot of digging and
we couldn't find any
the
connections.
connection.
We couldn't find any connections, but the similarities are far too great for there not to be something going on there, in my opinion. I mean, you be the judge. Go watch Cellular. You have one day.
Yeah.
You have to watch. You have to watch it the day this airs if you have HBO Max. So good luck.
And Rick Hoffman, please check out your tweets. You have one in your mailbox waiting for you from me, and I hope you see it soon. I know you're listening.
Let's try to get Rick Hoffman on the show, guys. Let's try to. Get him.
Yes.
That would be that's definitely a dream guest.
That's big time. Well, guys, I think we're sort of coming to the end here, and I guess before we go, I just want to throw out there. So let's say, it's now 2020. 16 years later, we got Chris Evans is one of the biggest stars in the world. Rick Hoffman was killing it on Suits for years. I feel like now's the time for a Cellular sequel.
Oh yeah.
But what do you do?
It's time for Cellular 2.
How do you make a sequel to Cellular though? Because cell phones are a completely different thing now than they were in 2004. Mm-hmm. So what do you do? Like what is the situation?
Oh, well, clearly Chris Evans has become like a bit of a Instagram famous guy from his exploits in Cellular, the original, and now he's got people reaching out to him and everything like that, and then he gets a message on one of his things, either Twitter or Instagram or something, and it's another thing. It's another person's kidnapped, and
it's
want
happening
him
again.
It's happening again, and they're picking him out in particular because they know his story. They're like, oh, no, you just answered this, so now it's like they're going after him in particular, So that's how you get Chris Evans back. You get Jason Statham back. Well, actually, maybe
I don't know how you get Jason Statham back.
Yeah, that might be tough.
I'm sure you can find a way. His twin brother or something.
Actually, well, no. You definitely get William H. Macy back because he'd be perfect now.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
People love him from Shameless. Like, you just slide him back in, and like he was already talking about being 27 years on the job in Cellular 1, and now he's gonna be like, I've been on the job for 58 years now on the job. Now I'm about to.
I don't think your math checks out there. I mean, in my opinion, I think it needs to be Chris Evans and Rick Hoffman like teaming up this time somehow. Like I don't know how that happens, but like, oh man, I can see the movie in my head and I want to watch it. So Dean Devlin, if you're listening, now's the time. Now's the time to bring back Cellular. Make it happen, please. I'll do anything. Well, that's going to be it for us, guys. Please watch Cellular. I think you'll have a good time reminiscing about the good old days of 2004. Fun in the sun.
Great times.
My Chemical Romance music. Or I think they were like.
Is that 2004?
They were like 2008. I have no idea. They're old. That's the point. Just remember your youth, or whatever 2004 was for you.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a good morning. We'll see you next time.
Also, the USA show is called Necessary Roughness.
Oh, yeah.